We shall now go on to our next speaker, and it's none other than our very dynamic ARC West member, Dr. Anaga Harur, who's going to show her challenging video. On to you, Anaga.
Yes, ma'am. Is the video visible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, ma'am. I would be speaking on a very simple thing today, and that is capsulorhexis enlargement. So this is a patient with a toric IOL, hypermature intumescent cataract, the initial nick done with a bent 26 gauge needle, aspirated a little bit of the loose cortex and the milk. And then we're doing a small capsulorhexis. It has a tendency to go to the periphery because it's an intumescent cataract, a very high propensity for an Argentinian flag sign or the rhexis going to the periphery. Keep pushing in viscoelastic, a cohesive OVD I would prefer, and do the rhexis through the side port. Now here, because it was an intumescent cataract, I would like to also decompress the bag. So I'm doing a little bit of irrigation and aspiration of the loose cortex. And now it is safe enough to go ahead and enlarge the capsulotomy. So I'm making a nick with a micro scissors and using the Utrata microforceps. I'm enlarging the capsulotomy very gently. Again, injecting viscoelastic in between, grasping the cut edge at the point where you want to tear it, and then going round circumferentially for 1 to 2 clock hours each time. And now that you can see, we're putting in a toric IOL, and as the IOL unfolds in the capsular bag, I now find that the capsulotomy is adequately sized, well-centered, and with a good 360-degree equal rim on all the sides. So even in an intumescent cataract like this, we can get good visual outcomes. So this is another mature cataract after staining with trypan blue. I usually use a 26 gauge needle. So I'm doing that. And again, like in this case, it's not got stuck and it's going to the periphery. So immediately you switch on to Utrata forceps and you bring it towards the center. The control direction is towards the center so that you prevent it from going out. In many of these mature cataracts, no matter how hard you try, sometimes the control over the direction is not really good. Causing an irregular rhexis like this. So you can redefine it by making a nick with the micro scissors perpendicular to the rhexis margin, and then on each side you grasp it at the tip and at the edge where you want to tear it, and then you can rotate it and circumferentially parallel to the pupillary margin, and you can create a decently sized, well-centered capsulotomy without the rhexis having to run to the periphery. This was the case like we had here. Now, another case was a femto case with a small pupil and an IFIS. So I wanted to use a pupillary expander. We are using the BHEX, putting the 3 flanges underneath the pupillary margin with a 23 gauge forceps. So you have a hexagonal, adequately sized pupillary opening. The capsulotomy flap is then removed. And you can see that it's a good capsulotomy flap. We're doing a very gentle hydrodissection. The capsulotomy size, as you can see, is much lesser than what I would have liked it because it was a smaller pupil size. Again, you do a very careful phaco being only in the center, in the central safe zone. I usually use the SCI mode to get a good red glow. And this was a multifocal IOL patient. Once you put in a multifocal IOL, actually the BHEX keeps the iris at bay and is very gentle on the pupillary margin. Again, because the capsulotomy was smaller, I extended it using the same micro scissors and the micro forceps. The BHEX is then disentangled from the pupillary margin and removed. You can see at the end of the case also, the pupil is nice and round and has good visual outcomes. Now, this again was a mature cataract, and you can see that there is the milk that is trying to escape out. It's a smaller capsulotomy area, but you can extend it even later after the lens has been put so that you can get a good cover from all the sides. So these are various scenarios where you can extend and enlarge the capsulotomy even in various cases to get an adequately sized rhexis. Thank you so much.
Nice videos, Gaurav, and all of you. I have, and Namrata has joined too. I have some doubts now. What is the role of doing staged rhexis consistently than doing the way she did? I'm sure even I would have done what Anaga did, but is there a definite role that it is safer to do a staged rhexis than doing just one rhexis? Second question is, if this were an intumescent cataract in a shallow eye, what extra measures would you take? Because you would expect more positive pressure in these eyes. What would be the extra measure? Gaurav?
Choice of viscoelastic, I think, like a soft shell kind of a technique would help, and she's probably already done that. And I think I completely agree with what Anagha was doing, that, making a smaller rhexis first and then maybe doing a little bit of debulking of the cortex, so that what I also sometimes do is that I start with a small rhexis, but I don't complete it. And then I go circumferentially like once or twice with a microrhexis forceps. So what I've realized is that if once you've made a small rhexis in the middle, then that frill which you are removing almost never runs out. Even in an intumescent cataract, it's always when you're doing the primary rhexis, when you have the whole thing, it'll run out very easily. But I do a lot of pediatric cataract as well, where I usually do this, that I'll start with a small rhexis, and then I'll just bring it to the full size that I need to do, even right in the initial part of the surgery. I don't wait till the end when I put in the lens and then I enlarge it. Sometimes you want to do that as well, but you can get a good rhexis. So these are a few things. And then, of course, making sure that you're doing from the side port. She already showed that very nicely. I think she's shown all the things so well. And if you end up getting a smaller rhexis, you can enlarge it towards the end and make sure that the overlap on the lens edge. You had some other question, ma'am, which
I said that if it were a very small eye and a YAG-PI has been done and it has an intumescent cataract, what would be the extra tip? Like she has shown similar situations. I wanted this discussion to come forward.
Such cases, I would do a femto assisted today. I would not, hesitate to, even do it free of cost to the patient if he can't pay for it somehow. I mean, are you looking for some other answer? I'm not sure.
Yes.
These are glaucomas.
How would you decongest the eye? Would you think of doing a pars plana vitrectomy?
That's what I mean. She's a glaucoma specialist.
I understand. Yeah. So we've had quite a few of those, I think, videos in the past.
I was ready with that answer because
I want your answer.
No, let Gaurav.
Gaurav has said his bit. You tell.
I don't enjoy doing blind vitrectomy. So if it's an opaque cataract, I would not probably do that as my primary choice. I would only do it if I was in a situation.
Namrata?
Yeah, so I think this has been well described, especially by, glaucoma surgeons who like to do a pars plana vitrectomy so that everything kind of comes down and you have more space to work. And those problems of shallow AC, with a wide cataract and a small rhexis, those are kind of obviated. I knew Chitra is asking for that answer.
Ramurthy, you have anything to tell?
Great teaching videos, Anagha. Just a comment about that rhexis with the femto laser. I noticed that, there was a little bit of space between the rhexis margin and the pupillary margin, even when you started the case. So usually, I think that's what I do. I'm sure you're also doing that. Our normal capsular rhexis is centered on the capsular bag, but we normally aim at around 5.2 millimeters. But when the space is not enough, we go on to pupil maximized mode. And that you are also using a catalyst. And the default setting in the catalyst is that it gives 500 microns offset from the pupillary margin. So if you have a 5 millimeter pupil, you get only a 4 millimeter rhexis. And that's really not necessary. All you need is a 100 micron space from the rhexis margin to the pupil margin. So with a 5 millimeter pupil, you can get a 4.8 millimeter rhexis. So in these situations, I actually manually overwrite so that in that particular case, you could have actually ended up getting the size of the rhexis that you finally wanted without having to extend it subsequently. Because usually, I think the safety margin that's incorporated in the machine is more than what is necessary. It's a single step to go ahead and adjust the rhexis margin on the fly, so that you just have 100. You can check it both on the axial and the sagittal maps to make sure that still it's not falling on the laser shots are not falling on the pupillary margin, and you are able to get fast-sized rhexis.
Yes, sir.
So any other question? Of course, if there is a rhexis extension has occurred in this case, and you could not make it round as she beautifully showed, what would be the step in phaco which you would take to deal with that tag also? Anyone? Sandeep?
Yeah. So you're talking of a rhexis tear during phaco.
No, because in the intumescent cataract, you have an extension has occurred to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, before that, you brought up that point about that small chamber.
Yes.
In fact, all these white cataracts you should examine on the slit lamp just before you take them up for surgery. And you can decide, seeing the amount of fluid vacuoles over there, whether there is a lot of intumescence. So if there is a lot of intumescence, you'll go for a stage rhexis. Otherwise, many mature cataracts can be handled as a one-stage procedure. Now, the second point was that, would you do a decongestion of the vitreous?
Yes.
So if it's a small eye, it's a glaucomatous eye, nanophthalmic or otherwise, it makes sense to go in through the pars plana. But if it's intumescence, the pressure is within the lens capsule itself. So you will have to handle it there, and a pars plana approach may not help to decongest the chamber.
Yes.
And the third thing what I wanted to comment was, as you said, during surgery, if there is a flap that has been created, you see the rhexis has run to the periphery. I would obviously go with low fluid parameters, slow motion phaco, make sure that my flap is visible all the time. Remember what Rohit Om Prakash told us about the flap motility sign. Keep on looking at it all the time. That gives you an idea that this flap is not extended beyond the equator. But essentially maintain a good chamber, have lots of patience, and use low fluidics to finish the case. Make sure that the rhexis doesn't run off to the periphery. And lastly, after we come to the stage where you have to implant the lens, you have to implant it in such a way that your haptics are at right angles to the tear. So that unless, of course, it's a toric lens, and you have to then take the call as to whether you would still want to implant the lens in that particular direction.
Yeah. I think we've covered all that is relevant here. So thanks a lot, Anagha, for a wonderful 3-4 videos.